Hello and welcome to Demo Electrotech. My name is Chris and today we're going to be looking at modern electronics and their pre-1950s counterparts. When was the first diode invented? Most people would say the 1950s. They think about the silicon diode right after and the transistor opening. When was the first diode invented? Most people say 1950s. They think about the silicon diode and the transistor that came right after it. By the way, that's the D2 and D3 are diodes. But here's the truth. Silicon didn't invent the modern electronics. In fact, silicon didn't even stable until the mass production until 1959. And here's the part everyone misses. Everything inside a modern computer and functions building block already existed long before silicon was ever considered. And computers and radios shared the same building blocks: isolators, amplifiers, amplifiers, detectors, filters, and memory logic. And to make this feel real, here's the radio kit I build. It's a modern use of silicon parts, and it looks like everything like the kind of electronic people assume only became possible after the 1950s. But every block of this board, the mixer, oscillator, amplifier, and detector, audio amplifier, already existed before 1950. Different material, different names, same job. People focus on silicon way too much. They talk about silicon like it invented electronics, but it did not. Silicon just became the king once it was stable and cheap. Flaming valves, countless square detectors, Williams tubes, delay lines, neon lamps, isolator scopes, camera tubes. My goal on this channel is to show you other technologies, the ones that came first, the alternatives that predate silicon. This part that already did the same exact job long before silicon took over. Let's go back to the first question. When was the first diode invented? It wasn't in the 1950s. It was 1904. It was called the Fleming valve. These two sections are diodes right here, D2 and D3. This video uses silicon diodes for a detector. In the 1920s and 30s, the same job was done by capacitors or detectors or diode valves, which diodes allow current to go one direction. It's pretty close to a water valve that we use outside for gardening. This radio uses silicon transistors. Before silicon, radios used diodes, triodes, and pentodes. Vacuum tubes doing the exact same job. And these black things right here you see on the board are transistors. Radios and computers both rely on logic and signal shaping. The radio's IF stages uses gain, filters, and limiting, all of which were done with tubes and stages long before silicon. Even radios have fixed memory. The tuner circuits, filters, and detector networks are hardwired functions. Before silicon, fixed logic and fixed data were stored in plug-in boards, diode matrix, and relay tables. Section 5. Computers needed random access memory. Radios needed timing and state. Before silicon, timing and state were stored in delay lines. Capacitors, indicators, and tune circuits, all forms of temporary storage. Section 6. LEDs and indicated radio frequency. This radio uses LED for power indicator, but we are being studied in the. This radio uses power indication, LED for power indication, but LEDs are being studied in 1920s series electric luminance experiments, and before LEDs, neon lamps and glowing lamps handled indicating duties. Section 7. Integrated circuit and radio frequencies. This radio uses a couple of ICs to simplify the design, but compact electronics exists long before silicon ICs. Some Malia tubes, hybrid models, and World War II proxy fuse tubes are earlier forms of integration. Section 8. Rectifiers and radio frequencies. This radio uses a silicon rectifier for power. Before silicon, rectifiers were copper oxide plates, selenium stacks, or memory rectifiers. This radio oscillator, silicon base, but Armstrong's invention, the rectifier oscillator, in 1912. Harry Watt and Carl Pitts oscillator came soon after. Same job, different physics. And once you start looking, you realize that everything bigger, every modern technology we use today, even the cameras in the iPhones, had pre-1950s equipment. Image the selector, isophonoscope, and early photocells. Before CMOS image sensors, we had vacuum tube camera sensors that captured light and turned it into electronic signals. Same job your phone camera does today. Section 11. Vacuum tubes never died. And by the way, vacuum tubes never actually died. They're still in common use today. If you ever have used a microwave, it has a magnetron inside it. A magnetron is a vacuum tube type. So even in 2026, we're still using vacuum tube technology every day. So the next time somebody says electronics started in 1950s, you know the truth. Everything on this radio board, the mixer, the isolator, the amplifier, the detector, already exist long before 1950. Different materials, different names, same job. And that's the forgotten history of electronics. This is Demo Retrotech. This is Demo Retrotech signing off. See you next time.